you become the meta spec. Hey all, it's Nim or Nimicry if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now today we're going to be talking about meta lists and the top DPS, healing spec, and tanking spec for 99% of the game. This won't apply if you're in a top 500 cutting edge guild and you're rating on the cutting edge team. So if that's the point, just hit subscribe and move on. But for everyone else, stay tuned for some very important information. And without further ado, let's get into it. At the beginning of every patch, every expansion, every tuning phase, everything the devs do to change the game, there's always a group of players that ask, what is the best? Give me the best damage spec. Give me the best healing spec. Give me the best tanking spec. I want to know exactly what that is. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We generally call them flavor of the month rerollers. That's okay. You can do that. Do whatever you want to do to play optimally. In fact, your raid team will like that. But before you go, click and re-roll everything into whatever the best spec is, which we'll get into in a second. Keep in mind, I said the words play optimally. Those are important. There's a reason why I have the priest up right here. This video is a little late due to statistics homework, so keep in mind with that. But what I want to mention is something around the meta list. Last week, the discipline priest was changed very dramatically twice. First time, evangelism was increased from 1.5 to 3 minutes. Later, as you can see on this screen right here, the cooldown has changed from 3 minutes back to 1.5 minutes. Now, if I had done a meta list while this was going on, while that was in that brief window of that 3 minute change, I might be like, oh, hey, look, don't roll a priest. You know, if you want to be this priest, it's dead, it's gone, they just doubled the cooldown. And listen, honestly, it never feels good to have one of your main cooldowns doubled. It doesn't in terms of duration. So I can understand that. But they changed it back. Thus, the futility of the meta list for 99% of the game. Listen, I said I'd reveal the specs, and here they are. Ready? And let's zoom in on me, right? Zoom in on me. Okay, good. You listening? The best specs are the ones that are played by players who show up and try. That's it. That's the secret. You show up and you try. And those will be the best spec. 99% of the game can be cut down with that. And I include mythic rating in that. You may not be world first, but let's be honest. If you're a world first raider, you're not looking at this. You've already planned this out with your team. They've worked on things. It's fine. But even cutting edge raiders, you can get cutting edge playing off meta specs. You may not get it until the end of the tier, but you can get it. Ultimately, you need to play your class as well as you can. Or your spec would be more accurate. You play your spec. Some people can play the whole class, but you play your spec as best you can. A low performing flavor of the month spec is not going to be more useful than a high performing non-flavor of the month spec. Unless there's a crazy balance issue and it's just like whatever you do, if you just mash 8 on your keyboard, you're just gonna top the meters and just absolutely destroy everything. And sometimes we have had things like that. I remember Holy Nova late WAD was very, very powerful. You could, as a discipline priest, you could do a lot with that. But there's the reason why I keep discipline priest here is because a lot of these things have changed. We look here, you see spell damage, heals, all targets affected by atonement was 50%, now it's 40%. Power word, shield, flash, heal, renew. Power word, radiance, apply atonement for 15 seconds. Your spell damage heals all targets by atonement from 50% to 40%. That's a pretty significant nerf. That's a 20% nerf to healing from atonement across all of that. Now, atonement is, of course, increased by your mastery, the healing there, but still, that's a pretty significant nerf. So, is this still going to be meta? Even with the cooldown change, is it going to be a meta class? Well, I don't know. We'll have to theory craft it. But here's the thing. All the people can take all the time in the world to theory craft all of it. And then, tuning pass changed. Do you know what doesn't change? Generally, class mechanics, right? This is why in all the videos, in all the streams, in the how to pick your main video that I did, which we can pop on screen right now, the little, boop, the little thumbnail there, check that out. I mentioned, look at class mechanics. Find out what is fun for you, because we may have different versions of fun. I personally enjoy simple classes. I don't like overly complex rotations, so that's me. Some people love the complex rotations and want the button bloat, and they're like, okay, well, Shadow Priest is that way, friend. go that way to it. But the point that I'm going to get at is that you need to play a class that is fun because numbers will always change. For example, I'm going to bet that Evoker is going to be really powerful for the first patch. Then it's going to get a tuning pass and be brought back in line with some other people. I could be wrong. It's entirely possible. I don't do theory crafting, and I've avoided the beta outside of a few very specific instances because I don't want to burn myself out like I did when I was playing Shadowlands. I leveled through the beta like 3 times in Shadowlands, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to level this anymore. And so that was that. And the Maw skip, and I mean, we did this before the Maw skip, so you had to do the Maw, and I'm good. I'm good on that. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to really enjoy the fresh experience. Now, for full disclosure, I did do the Drakthir opening campaign and found it very enjoyable. So that's that. What I want to mention additionally is that you may ask, Nim, okay, you gave us the general rule of like, okay, player shows up and tries, they're going to be the best player. Okay, we get that. But what about the spec, right? What's the actual best spec? And I don't have the answer for that because it's going to change from week to week. With gear, it's going to change from week to week. With encounter, it's going to change week to week with a fix. So what might be super good for one fight is going to be terrible for another. So in general, your best bet is to learn how to adapt to all things. You become the meta spec, right? That's what you do. The spec you play is inconsequential because you, as a player, already have the raid awareness and the preparedness and the ability to play well. So once you have that basic understanding and knowledge around, you're like, oh, hey, this comes with behaviors like, oh, I should avoid the fire. When the tank spins the boss, I should probably get on their flank or their rear, depending on the abilities of the boss. As a healer, keep an eye out, like, okay, my cleanse. I know when to use my cleanse. When do I have an AoE cleanse? Should I use that? Coordinate cooldowns. All of this stuff will actually make you a better player regardless of the spec, because meta lists, especially before Mythic, are essentially fan fiction, right? It's great that your favorite spec is absolutely rocking the meters when played at 100% efficiency. That's awesome. I want you to have that. I would also like you to be able to execute at 100% efficiency, and very few players can. So keep that in mind. That's why when you look at the DPS listings, there's a range, which is a solid bar, and then there are error bars showing variance. Thank you, stats class, for teaching me something that I can use in-game. I appreciate that. But what do we do for Dragonflight? You relax. You play a spec that you want to play, and then you go from there. But Nim, I'm in a top 500 cutting edge guild. First off, bravo, and that's not even sarcastic. That's bravo, good job. You're raiding with him, fantastic. Then ask your raid lead what needs to be filled, and go from there. Because they'll already have an answer for you if what they need. When in doubt, learn to play your entire class. So let's hypothetically say you're one of my favorite classes in the entire game, the Paladin. Paladin has 3 specs, 1 of each role. Learn how to play all this. So let's say you've been a ret for a long time, learn how to tank. Say you've been a tank, learn how to heal. Say you're heal, learn how to ret. Or do all 3. That way, no matter what you are the meta player. So if some things are like, hey, look, we need strong single target healing or something. Hey, well, I geared my Holy Paladin a bit. I can hop in there. Boom. Next fight. Oh, well, we don't need to overheal this. Okay, I'll switch back to ret. Oh, one of our tanks is missing. Hey, what do you know? I'm here. Boom. And that way, you play optimally. And since you're playing the same class, but just different specs, your toolkit, for a large part, remains the same. Which means your keybinds remain the same. Which means you can train yourself for muscle memory to play the same way. So, for example, I use 7 as my interrupt key. I use 8 as my movement speed. I use F as one of my abilities. I have a whole bunch. You can see my keybinds there. V is usually my big DPS cooldown, like, okay, pop wings, use divine hymn, something really big. I always press the V. And these are personal keybinds for me. So set your keybinds up like that, and that'll make you a better player. As for actual, like, what spec does this number and this number and this number and this number and this number, you're going to have to go somewhere else for that. I'd go to theory crafting forums find that out. Wowhead has a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with that, but keep in mind, those numbers are going to change, and positions are going to shift as gear and abilities get as gear increases and abilities get rebalanced. So keep that in mind. Now, one thing I do want to say is I hope to see you all in Dragonflight, and if you like me or you like what I do on this channel, go on and hit subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with everything the channel does. Additionally, you can find me on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do a lot of World of Warcraft, and on occasion we step into some Soulsborne stuff. I was really feeling Elden Ring this weekend, and we got 2 bosses down, so it feels good there. Finally, for those who wish to go above and beyond the Call of Duty, there is the Patreon. That's a place where you can support the channel directly, and that is at patreon.com/Nimicry. This was a useful video to make, and I hope that you take this knowledge going forward. Because it doesn't matter how theoretically good your spec can be if you are not there and if you cannot play it at that level, or it's not geared to that level. So keep that in mind, and may the mount you're farming drop on the first kill.